How are you doing? I'm back. Um, I'm probably a little more sober now than I was last night on that really long ass live stream. That was kind of fun. May have to do that again. We'll probably be doing that again on election night. If I'm off on election night, I gotta go and see what I can do about that. So, anyway, vacation time. Um, Wonderful. I mean, it's almost over. I guess all good things must come to an end. It shouldn't, but that's just how the world works, seems to be. So, what can I do? Enjoy the last few days off and do what I do best: flap my gums about some politics. Well, I'm hearing that's how Speaker of the House Nancy Pelosi. She wants to invoke the usage of the 25th Amendment to the U.S. Constitutions as a means to possibly get um, rid of President Donald Trump. And so, what is what is the purpose of the 25th Amendment? It addresses the succession to the presidency and establishes procedures both for filling a vacancy and in office of the vice president and responding to presidential abilities and disabilities, basically. And it was proposed as an amendment in 1965, and it was ratified in 1967. Um, it was, as I said, this was during the aftermath of the Kennedy assassination in 1963. So, Section 1 says, uh, in the case of removal of the president from the office of his death or resignation, the vice president shall become president. Section 2, whenever there is a vacancy in the office of vice president, the president shall nominate a vice president who shall take office upon confirmation by a majority vote in both houses of Congress. Section 3, whenever the president transmit to the president pro tem of the Senate and the Speaker of the House of Representatives his written declaration that he is unable to discharge the powers and duties of his office, and until he transmit to them a written declaration to the contrary, such powers and duties shall be discharged by the Vice President as acting president. Section 4. Um, Whenever the vice president and a majority of either of the principal officers of the executive departments or such other bodies as Congress may by law provide transmit to the president pro tem of the Senate and the Speaker of the House of Representatives their written declaration that the president is unable to discharge the powers and duties of his office. The vice president shall immediately assume the powers and duties of the office as acting president. Thereafter, when the president transmit to the president pro tem of the Senate and the Speaker of the House of Representatives have written declaration that no inability exists, he shall resume the powers and duties of his office unless the Vice President and a majority of either of the principal officers of the executive department or such other bodies as Congress may by law provide transmit within 4 days to the President pro tem of the Senate and the Speaker of the House of Representatives their written declaration that the President is unable to discharge the powers and duties of his office. Thereupon, Congress shall decide the issue, assembling within 48 hours for the purpose, if not in the sessions. If Congress within 21 days after receipt of the latter of written declaration, or if Congress is not in session within 21 days after Congress is required to assemble, determines by 2/3 of the vote of both houses that the president is unable to discharge the powers and duties of his office, the vice president shall continue to discharge the same as acting president. Otherwise, the president shall resume the powers and duties of his office. So there you have it. Um, yeah, there you have it. So right now, it looks like Nancy Pelosi is wanting to remove President Donald Trump from office, basically declaring that the president is incompetent. But if we were to declare President Trump incompetent, which I'm not close-minded to that scenario, but I would basically make an argument that damn, just about every president or many of the presidents we've had have been very incompetent. And look at, I mean, if that was the case, George W. Bush should have been removed from office. Um, and I said before many times that I consider George W. Bush far worse than than President Trump in a lot of ways. In fact, I remember in 2008, around October 2008, just a few weeks before the election, I had a discussion with people about between McCain and Obama that no matter who wins this election, anything's going to be an improvement to George W. Bush. I still stand by that, but because George W. Bush was the worst. But there are ramifications. What Nancy Pelosi needs to realize, there's political ramifications for the future. So, and what happens? The impeachment. The impeachment was. I wasn't opposed to the impeachment per se, but what they were trying to impeach the president over, the Russian collusion, it was bullshit. I never believed in Russian collusion. I think that to try to start a whole new Cold War and to go and attack the president using McCarthyist tactics from the right by the supposed left was absolutely asinine. And I knew that it was going to turn out exactly the way it turned out. And what happened? The U.S. House voted to impeach Donald Trump. A Republican-controlled Senate will just basically dismiss it. That's exactly what happened. What happens? The public looked at Donald Trump and they looked at him as both a victim and a hero. It was a public relations disaster for the Democrats, and and I mean, and especially with the Russian collusion, there are things you can actually impeach the president for that's legitimate. I mean, some of his dealings with Saudi Arabia is very questionable. And the selling of arms to Saudi Arabia to basically oversee a genocide in Yemen, that is where you can get him. That is where you can get him. But basically, the Democrats take the most lame ass way to when they decide to have a backbone and fight. They do it with the most lame ass method as possible, and they half-ass it as usual. And you know what? Trump's base is motivated. I know he's got COVID. You got the COVID crisis, and you got the economy that's just all in shambles, and the country is experiencing social unrest right now. But having that said, you're going to create a reservoir of sympathy for a man that does not deserve sympathy at all, and that was my problem. The slippery slope of using this 25th Amendment. Because I mean, I'm gonna tell you, if even if it whether he can be removed from office, and removing Donald Trump from office could potentially means that by default, Mike Pence is the default presidential candidate at that point, and they will go and vote for Mike Pence because they're going to be so pissed and so super motivated, and it's going to look so calculated and political. You can end up with a President Mike Pence to be sworn in November. And trust me, Mike Pence is far worse than Donald Trump. So much so that some never Trumpers of 2016 who became pro-Trump supporters are pro-Trump supporters because they kind of know that Donald Trump is a lazy man, and that all the shitty policies and everything that comes out of the Trump administration is really Mike Pence, because Mike Pence is further right wing than Donald Trump. The slippery slope is whether Trump is removed from office or not. Let's say in the year 2024. Let's say Elizabeth Warren makes a run for president and she wins, or Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez runs for president and she wins, or and I know that Bernie Sanders to some would be looked upon as 100 years old, but let's say he decides to make a 2024 run and he gets the nomination and he wins. Who's not to say that someone like Mitch McConnell, if he's still Senate Majority Leader, wouldn't use that to try to remove his political enemies? And don't think that Mitch McConnell wouldn't do that, because I know he would. I mean, it's a slippery slope, and so, I mean, I'm just going to urge mainstream normie Democrats who are in Congress to be careful what you wish for, because it could have some ramifications. Now, the court packing I'm hearing about, and part of me says go ahead and do it, because the right wing are going to go and try to pack up the courts. If there's a Democrat in there, try to go and expand the courts to make sure that another Donald Trump can't put a half a dozen right wing judges in power again so easily. And I mean, but I don't know. I mean, there's a slippery slope, and it may means amending the Constitution. And I'm a little nervous about amending the Constitution a whole lot. I mean, because I'm always worried about what can happen tomorrow. That's what I'm worried about. So that's what it comes down to. So, I mean, I do think he's mentally incompetent in a lot of ways, but there's also there's repercussions you have to worry about in that regard, and it could create a little more instability than anybody cared to see. So but everything is getting dirty. I mean, from the days of Bill Clinton with the Monica Lewinsky scandal and the impeachment that took place back then, it really was basically how dare a Democrat take the presidency away from the Republicans in 1992. We're going to go and make him pay like hell for it. But then again, the Democrats don't choose their battles wisely. They could have impeached George W. Bush back during his presidency, because George W. Bush, his policies caused the murder of 500,000 dead Iraqis. Remember that, and over 10,000 American troops are either permanently injured or died because of this war in Iraq, which made the world less safe, and it has cost us tens of trillions of dollars in debt, to the point where the economy is kind of on shaky grounds, and it has been that way for all these years. So, food for thought, and just progressives, liberals, even normie Democrats, be careful what you wish for, because sometimes you get what you want, you may get more than you bargained for. And just food for thought right now. And this is what I got to say. If you like what you heard, press like and comment. If you were triggered, you can comment anyway. Feel free to share any content on this channel that you deem necessary. As a First Amendment absolutist, it's my duty to inform you that if you got something to say and you got a platform, you want to build a platform online, please do so, because we're the muckrakers of our times. And most importantly, when you watch these videos, remember to hit that subscribe button to help make this channel grow. Until next time, peace, and Bernie Sanders for president in the year 2024.